All right, we're live. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Thanks to our sponsors, GTM Ventures and Raz Rocket. Today, I'm joined by Sandeep Conduri. Sandeep, how are you?
Doing quite well. Thanks for having me, Sunny.
Yeah, it takes a few minutes for people to trickle in, but I see we already got two people. So, welcome to everyone watching today. Um, so Sandeep, I usually start with like a sentence or two on your company, just what you're working on today. And then I usually get to that by the end of the interview. But do you want to just maybe share the elevator pitch on what you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm building feature. It's spelled feet, FEAT dot. This really started with the concept of what I call featured marketing, which is identifying the right distribution channels for any business. Think podcasts, newsletters, subreddit groups, Slack, blogs, and getting companies featured on those channels. And the inspiration for this is conventional inbound marketing is getting commoditized because of AI, right? Creating a blog post is very easy with AI. Anyone can create hundreds of blog posts. So this whole marketing world right now is optimizing for SEO optimization, GEO optimization. How do you appear on ChatGPT or Claude and all these other LLMs? The insight that I started Feed with is that while creating content is getting commoditized and it's getting easier, the only way companies can stand out is by getting in front of their audience, getting featured. That is where the term featured marketing came into being. I'm teaching people about what it means to be featured marketed. I'm featured marketing myself, getting on multiple podcasts. I'm advertising this in a couple of newsletters and Substack groups. But I'm also helping startups do the same for their brands.
Cool. That's quite exciting. Yeah, I'm interested in getting into it. But like I always say, I love asking people about kind of their background and their worldview before they got into all this, and then the story kind of makes a lot more sense for me. So you moved from India to the University of Washington as an international student, arriving with enormous ambition and very little else. What
Yeah.
was the first year actually like, and what drove you to keep going through all the hard times?
Oh my God. Yeah. The first year I was in La La Land. Honestly, the first year of my after moving to the US, I was new to college, new to the US. I made a lot of mistakes. I went to a lot of parties. I didn't focus on my education as much as I should. But that whole first year was sort of the trial period, yeah. So I didn't really have to focus on everything. But post that, after my first freshman year, I started focusing a lot more on getting involved. I was very interested. I started getting interested in entrepreneurship. So I got into a couple of scholarships that were VC focused, and I started working with a couple of startups, and I started interning at a VC as an analyst. So that was my initial sort of like my first steps into the land of venture, and the rest is history. After that, I've sort of been in that same space for the last 8 years now, something like that.
Fascinating. So you've also written openly about going through depression as a freshman, even on your birthday, feeling completely alone. So how did that experience shape how you show up for founders who are in their darkest moments?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, the first year it was a lot of like questioning what's the purpose of being in the US? What do I do next? Uh, and I publicly talked about this as I mentioned uh, failure after failure, failure after failure, rejection after rejection. It started getting so obvious and so expected at that point. I started celebrating failure rather than getting more and more depressed about it. So I created this small ritual where after every sort of rejection I faced, I would go treat myself with an ice cream. There was a very famous ice cream shop in very close to where I live in the university. I would go there, get myself an ice cream, reflect on what happened, what I got rejected on, uh, just treat myself with an ice cream, and then go do the next activity or go try something else. And I kept doing that, and that's what I talk to is mental health is extremely important. I was just talking to someone about this at Antler. Uh, Mental health, especially for founders, is a very, very important topic, especially because grind is very heavily focused in the early days. Is like until you prove yourself, until you know that you can provide value to your customers and investors, nobody's really like looking after your mental health. You're the only person who can do that. So I think most more founders should be conscious about that part of their life too. Is just taking like maybe once a month or twice a month therapy sessions. I've been doing therapy the last 3 years now, I think, and that's helped me tremendously. Not just in the aspect of improving my mental health, but also understanding myself better and being able to make the right decisions at every step of my process.
Super cool. So you had this one professor, Alan Leong, right, that essentially planted the seed of entrepreneurship in your mind. What was it about, I don't know, that moment, that class that made it all click for you?
Oh my God, yeah, you've done your research. This was very important. So this was right around like the freshman year was done. I think it was like the holidays or something. I was wandering in the business school. I just wanted to see if I could go study there or whatever. And I end up running into this professor, uh, very famous guy, right? Like every he has like a lot of legends around him that he like cultivates a lot of entrepreneurs in the university. So I was like, okay, I need to go say hi to him. I walk up to this man and I start talking to him and I say, hey, I'm interested in entrepreneurship. I want to take your class. And he goes, okay, I'll give you a code. And freshmen and sophomores are typically not allowed to take his class. His class is only for seniors. So he said, I'll give you a code. You sign up to my class for the next quarter, and I sign up, and I'm the only sophomore in that class. Everyone else was either a junior, mostly seniors. And there we did like a little entrepreneurship program, entrepreneurship project. We had a small team. That was the deliverable of the class is doing like a startup project or a pitch. I did that, and that really opened my world into venture capital because after I did that, I applied to a couple of scholarships. I got into the Lab in Entrepreneurship scholarship, and so that was really the pivotal moment. Is just going and saying hi to this professor in the corridor that day. So yeah, and I've become very good. He's a mentor. We've had a great relationship over the years. He's sort of having his had some health issues later on. I haven't been in touch with him, but holds a very special place in my heart.
Yeah, so before we maybe switch gears, one last one. You wrote in college about wanting to use data science to help reshape India's future, almost more like a policy vision than a business one. How much of that original mission is still alive in what you're building today?
Yeah, I live in the world of bits and data right now. A big part of what I'm building is information. I haven't actively been working on that mission of contributing to India's growth story. Uh, it's in the works. It's in the back of my mind. Not actively something I'm working on right now, but hopefully after a few years, when I get my first big exit, that could be a potential next venture.
That's cool. That's cool. So let's switch gears to kind of like the aha moment, right? So you worked at, was it at New Chip, where you essentially built what became their second revenue generating product from scratch as product
Yeah.
ops associate. So you weren't a founder, but still, what did it feel like to do that? And when did you realize you needed to build your own thing?
Yeah. So my college was very essential to my experience as a founder. New Chip was the next big influence in my career. Uh, there, I started my career as an analyst. I was talking to a ton of founders, 40, 50 founders any given month, and interviewing them, trying to learn about their business models, what they're trying to do, if they're feasible, if they're like investment worthy. And after a few months of being an analyst, I got promoted to being a program associate, where I worked with another mentor of mine, Brian Lee, to build my first revenue generating platform, which was a mentorship program for founders. So as part of that, I was heavily involved with RevOps teams. It was very cross functional because it was sort of like developing a new program from the ground up. So it was extremely cross functional. I was working with the RevOps team, with the customer success team, obviously with the program itself, and sort of like orchestrating everything and then helping with the sales. I did a couple of sales, closed a few deals. My first like closes. That was very exciting, and that became the second revenue generating. Although that program didn't last much longer. Again, I moved teams. I moved to a different project within New Chip. So that program didn't sort of take off after I left it. But while I was doing it, it was really pivotal and like managing all this team and sort of setting a vision and idea for the company. And it was an interesting project because it was kind of like a startup, but within the company. So in that sense, it was quite interesting.
Cool. So, I mean, yeah, you've got a really fascinating background. You've also worked across roles that most people, pick one of, right? Operator, analyst, founder, investor, community builder. Was there like a
Yeah,
specific moment when you realized the intersection of all those was actually your superpower?
I never thought about that. It's sort of taken me being in venture, especially when you're working in like a smaller fund, smaller startup. You're typically wearing multiple hats. And as part of that process, I never questioned it. I did the tasks that needed to be done. I've worked with, like I said, hundreds of startups, helped in the deployment of over $10 million, worked as an analyst, worked as an associate, operator, and everything else you described. So it wasn't a specific moment that made me think, okay, hey, like these are all my skill sets. It was more so the passion for the game, the interest in venture, building new businesses, building innovation. That is what kept motivating me. And I'm a naturally curious person. I get attracted to challenging problems, and I just kept going to those and kept pushing myself to solve these really important problems that need to be solved for the business to operate. Uh, and that kind of became my my power, I guess.
And you've also described yourself as a venture capital super connector.
Yeah.
So in
Mhm.
practical terms, what does that actually look like? What do you do for a founder in the first 90 days that most VCs don't? And then let's maybe switch gears into, I guess, what you're excited about today, right? And what you're building.
Yeah. The super connector, the way I look at it is I never don't connect a founder I meet with someone I know. Every time I talk to someone, the first conversation I have, I end the conversation with, "Hey, I know someone you should meet." It's either an investor, it could be another operator, it could be someone who I know for sure is going to be able to help this founder. And I've had these conversations hundreds of times, right? So it's almost become muscle memory for me, to the point where when I talk to a founder, they tell me, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is the stage I'm in. It's sort of like a natural unlock in my mind. I understand, okay, this guy is in like scale stage and he's thinking about revenue the wrong way. This CRO is who I should introduce him to. Um, or if it's a seed stage company that's sort of like pre traction, I typically think, okay, they probably need some product help or they need someone who can actually go sell the first few deals for this founder. And I introduce it to them. And another way I think about the word super connector is, first of all, myself becoming a connection for the founder. So I love building relationships. I Most of my best friends now are relationships I've built with founders. Someone DM'd me on LinkedIn. I typically never ever not respond to a cold email or a cold message. Always, if they're in the city of Austin, I meet them for a coffee. If they're If they're in a different city, I hop on a Zoom call with them, and I try to help them any way I can, and I try to build that relationship. And typically, if the founder is also showing interest, and if the conversation goes back and forth for a few months, they end up becoming my friends. That's how most of my best friends have come into my life right now. And then, yeah, so it's like first step of being super connected is always helping someone, always helping the in the first conversation, connecting them to someone. And the second thing is becoming friends and actually being able to connect them to more people wherever they need to be. And one quick success story, I guess, is one founder I met like that recently, like July of last year. Best friends, we hang out, we go on walks every week. He's just closed his Series A round, and I'm not gonna say I was responsible for the race, but I was heavily involved.
I love that. I love so you've been embedding AI and data analytics into how accelerators and venture operations run, right? So how are you
Mhm.
using AI right now to find, evaluate, support founders that you're working with?
Yeah. So this process, I'm working on less of right now. It's something I did a couple of years ago. I was using a few metrics that we captured during the interview process with a founder to understand, hey, where do these founders stand in the grand scheme of things? Obviously, from like a qualitative perspective, you talk to the founder, you say, hey, like, what's the vibe of this founder? Do they have a unique vision? Do they have some proprietary skill or proprietary information that could turn out to be a unique advantage? But we use some data metrics to understand where they stand in our cohort, right? We split founders that we interact with into cohorts and then sort of measure where they stand qualitatively, extremely qualitatively. Oh, sorry, quantitatively is say, hey, like this founder has 6 months. This is how much revenue they've raised. This founder has had 12 months. This is how much revenue they were able to generate. What is the team count? Um, who is on their team, stuff like that. And we used a few LLMs and a few other proprietary data my team, not me, a few of my team members built to start analyzing founders.
Cool. Hey, Sandeep, do you wanna? You said you at the beginning you were saying you wanted to share something as well, right? Did you want to share what your TEDx talk was about?
Yeah, yeah. So this was, I would say, the jewel of my work so far. I got invited to speak at the South Congress last year, 2025, and I presented my thesis on venture investing. It was, what is the one common feature of every successful company in the world? That was the question I started with. And I had an answer before I started preparing for the speech, and I sort of like built my thesis around the speech. And turns out it's not funding, it's not technology. It is the language used to describe themselves. It is the vocabulary associated with the company. And the whole speech, the whole TED talk revolves around uh, dissecting this, explaining what I mean by that. And I coined this term called lingo leverage. So companies that change the perception of of their customers in the sense of making life easier or allowing them to make more money or giving them some sort of convenience. Apple is a great example for this, and they've been notoriously like secret about it, right? They in the early days of Apple, they used to use this phrase a lot. They would say, "Oh, there's an app for that. There's an app for that," with a question mark, and they would like keep using the word "there's an app, there's an app, there's an app." And that sort of changed the perception of a lot of developers. They're like, oh, we can make money using apps, cool, let's like invent Uber, or like, and then this thing became like a cultural movement, right? People started thinking, if it was a founder, they would think about what app can we develop so we make money. And then all the users are also like, I wonder if there's an app to solve this problem. So we created a market there. So that was the concept I came up with as lingo leverage. When you can create a phrase or a small term that changes how people see reality for themselves, and it's actually valuable, you have a unique advantage, is my thesis.
Cool, man. So did you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, before we land the plane here, about your current company that you're working on and how it all ties together?
Yeah. So after I gave my TED talk, it was very well received. It got selected to be staged on the global TED platform, selected as the TED editor's pick. I was thinking about, okay, what do I do next? I should put into action what I speak. I should try to show lingo leverage in action. And I started looking at the world, looking at the problems that exist. And that's where I landed on featured marketing. And that's the lingo I created, is featured marketing, which is the whole marketing world right now seems to be heading in the wrong direction. They're all saying, hey, if you know the keywords your customers are searching for, let's use LLMs to create a bunch of content, and that will make your company appear in front of in ChatGPT or Claude or these other LLMs. So the whole marketing world is kind of thinking at it with the idea of SEO optimization, keyword optimization, which worked 10 years ago, right? GEO, they're calling it GEO. But I don't think that is what is going to make any brand stand out or any company's brand marketing stand out. The opposite I'm proposing is featured marketing, which is identifying where your customers currently exist. That could be podcasts, newsletters, Substack, blogs, Facebook groups, whatever, right? Like wherever people already are channeled, and then getting yourself featured. And can you do it in a way that you're not just going and talking to the people like I'm doing right now? We are talking to people, but also optimize the metadata, the description, for AI to be able to read that. That way, it solves two problems, right? First is you're talking to people, you're building a relationship, and all this metadata that you can put into the description, if you optimize that to be AI readable, you're hitting two birds with one stone. So that's sort of the vision that I started this company Feet with, is it helps companies identify those channels, get connected with those channels, get featured on those channels, and then track how those features are performing. Um, and I think this is fundamentally going to replace inbound marketing, because creating blog posts is not going to be as valuable anymore. You want companies to take a more active approach, not just a passive LLM blog post approach. So that's my whole vision with this.
Love it, man. Very cool. I'm so happy we got to meet. Wow, we got 24 people checking in and syncing with us. That's so cool. I just love this idea of live streaming. Thank you all for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. And with that, I guess let's bring this one to a close. Yeah, Sandeep, thank you for your time. And Sandeep, just hang out for a minute. I'm going to bring the live stream to a close. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.